Well, Jonathan, hopefully the website visitors have looked at our segment on how to plant a tree before they've looked at this, because we're going to have the tree planted.
Absolutely. If you haven't, you need to go back and do that now.
Yeah, to go back and do it now, we'll wait for you. All right, but when you get this tree in the ground and you've done it right, and again, go look and see how to do it right, you've got a lot of time and money invested in this tree. But I'll say something about that investment. When you plant a food plot, you got a big investment and you've got what benefit from it? Maybe a season, sometimes with perennials a little longer. When you invest in one of these guys, they may outlive you. And when you take the establishment cost and divide it by 20, 30 years, it's a pretty cheap investment.
Absolutely.
So you made a big investment, but you just can't walk away from it. You've got to maintain these things. And so what are the things that can happen to this tree after we get it in the ground? We got a cage on it, we got it planted properly.
So if it's protected from wildlife, the number one thing that you'll do wrong in the first season is water. You get the hydration wrong. In a lot of cases, people overwater their plants, but that's usually in a backyard situation or in a commercial landscape. In this case, I think the bigger risk is not getting enough water, or the timing on the water not being adequate.
Yeah, and I suggest that you put a rain gauge on each of your orchards, because even if you got a small property, the rain is different. And you normally like to, during the growth season, have about 1 inch a week. Would that be good? And if they don't have it, then you need to be prepared. Now, what are the ways we can water these things?
Well, it depends on your resources on your particular tract, but a lot of folks don't have regular visits to their property, and in those cases you're limited. And there's a couple different options. The most popular and effective in my experience has been, there's several different products out there that allow the water to be stored and to trickle out. They're bags, if you will, bladders, that you fill with water, and the water trickles out and gives the tree what it needs on a really slow basis.
And we're going to have those available through the website.
They will be available through the website, that's correct. And there are different sizes for the different size plants, but the majority of what we're going to be providing, the smaller size will do. I really don't recommend planting real large containerized trees that aren't going to be put on an irrigation system, because they're just too hard to keep up with. Their water requirements are too high.
Yeah, and you're going to have to expect to pay attention to water at least the first year, and sometimes into the second year, depending on what it is. Now, out here at the Institute, we're here all the time, so we've worked up our own little customized trailer with a tank on it and a water pump, and so we water these guys as they need it. Now, let me add something to what Jonathan's telling you. The other thing you got to worry about is competition from other plants. Now, where you're going to put your orchards, you're going to be clearing out a spot. Now, it may be clear dirt when you construct it, but in the ground is a whole bunch of roots of things that are just waiting to pounce out and compete with your plant. One of the biggest competitors of these trees is grasses. And so what we want to do, we just like to take a cloth and put it around the base of the tree once we got it planted, before we put the cage on, and then put some dirt on it to weight it down, and that will control, it's about 4 foot around, and that will control the weeds around it. Now, we also mow these orchards, and we also use herbicides.
Right, and getting that herbicide mix right is pretty important. You can spray real close to the tree and actually get on the root ball itself if you've got a 2% mix, and anything more than that, you're putting the tree at risk. And you also, if you're spraying herbicide anywhere near a newly planted tree or an established tree, you should always avoid spraying any of the foliage with the herbicide.
Yep, that's a quick way to kill one.
It is.
And a lot of these trees have very soft tissue in their early days around it, and they can absorb herbicide that way too, can't they?
Yeah, they can. And one other point I'd like to make is, depending on what you've done to protect the trees during their infant stages, as they grow, they're gonna expand and eventually probably get girdled, which is what you really want to avoid. So you do need to check in on your cages, whatever kind of apparatus you've used to protect the trunk. Make sure that it's not choking the tree off, or else you're going to have a bad result. Yep. So maintenance is important. It doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be weekly, but through the first season, you got to make sure that the tree is getting enough water. Pay attention to rainfall in the areas where you've planted. A lot of times, these properties are nowhere near where you live, so pay attention to what's happening on the property when you're not there.
And lastly, Jonathan, I'm asked often, what about fertilization? And it took us a long time to get the answer to that, what seems like a simple question. We asked a lot of people and they go, I mean, I was asking experts. So I didn't know you those days. I wish I'd been around to ask you, but you have any recommendations for fertilization or when?
Well, of course, it'll depend on what fertilizer you have and what kind of tree it is and the size. Generally, it'll depend on the caliper inch of the tree and how hot the fertilizer is that you're buying. But what have you used out here?
We've used just a balanced fertilizer, triple 13, triple 12. That seems to work well. But if you see the segment that we have for you on collecting and conducting soil analyses, be sure to ask for a micronutrient analysis, because there are some soils out there that the micronutrients are going to really limit you and have a negative impact on your tree. So down and dirty, a balanced fertilizer, more appropriately, whatever the soil sample and soil analysis tells you.
Well, those are all good recommendations, Dr. Kroll. There are other things to consider, but I think those are the ones that are going to keep you out of trouble and give you the best chance for success.
Remember, we want you to succeed. You're going to have an investment in these trees. Do it right, and I'll guarantee you're going to be happy.